So, as a summary of the type of listening, content is one which deals with understanding and retaining information. The objective here is to understand the content of the message and retain it. And critical is one where the objective here is to evaluate or analyze the message and figure out what is important or what is not, so that you can proceed to deal with the situation at hand without spending time on what is not relevant. As far as active listening is concerned, used to actively provide verbal and non-verbal feedback to the speaker about the understanding of what is being communicated. Next, active listening acceptance response. So, using an acceptance response is inserting simple verbal utterances or words into the conversation. Non-verbal communication can also be used, and this provides a mechanism to communicate that you are listening without interrupting the speaker's flow of thought and speech. Examples: okay, I see, I understand, yes, etc. Easiest and safest way that most people communicate. The answer is surprising because we all feel so good and we do it and we think that it is so giving. Another hint is that often teens don't observe it, and the more they don't listen, the more we continue to do it. The answer is drum roll, please. So it's nothing but advice giving. So take a moment and think about when all you want to do is to be heard and the person gives you advice. Even if it is very subtle, it feels very unsatisfying and leaves you thinking that you should feel better but don't. The irony is that most people engage in communication to deepen relationship through a process of waiting to speak and advice giving. The best example of this is the wife who attempts to tell her husband about a difficult day, and he proceeds to respond with attempts to fix her problem and give her his profound advice. The wife inevitably says that she just needs him to listen and to really be heard. The tragedy with advice giving is that while the person is speaking, the other person is generally formulating the advice they are going to bestow once the person stops speaking. The interaction is not about truly listening, rather, it becomes a battle to speak in order to be heard. To truly listen to someone is extremely challenging and requires selfless attention to absorb the meaning of their words and to share what they are expressing. This process is called active listening and produces an incredible sense of connection and acceptance in that person who is sharing. To become a proficient listener is not easy and requires diligence to be fully present in the moment and not be distracted by thoughts of correction, advice, or platitudes or glitches of change. The active listener is able to remain fully present and able to perceive the entire means of communication, whether it is verbal or non-verbal. When others genuinely heard, they experience acceptance at a deep and profound level. This experience of acceptance facilitates the speaker in feeling valuable and worth being cared about. The fact that the listener genuinely listened and did not challenge them with advice communicates that the speaker's words and emotions are validated and thus they are accepted. This ability to actively listen and authentically make others feel accepted is challenging. But one of the most effective means of experiencing intimacy and joy is a relationship. Take the challenge and actively listen to someone and experience how it makes them and you feel. Repeating. The purpose of repeating is to highlight key words or phrases that indicate you have identified the most critical components of the message. The customer says the phone number where you can reach me during the day is with the area code, and tone of understanding can be either way, either a prefix to the given information or the suffix to the given information. And the tone of expectation for additional information is either like an hyphen or the numbers followed like 551 and so on. So, repeating is a summary of what has been said back to the speaker is a technique used by the listener to repeat what has been said in their own words. Summarizing involves taking the main points of the received message and reiterating them in a logical and clear way, giving the speaker chance to correct if necessary. So that is the ultimate point of repeating. So as part of active listening, paraphrasing is one factor, which is like stating in your own words understanding of what you heard. So customer is saying, I sent in the check 2 weeks ago, and when I got my statement, I found that the amount was not credited. Paraphrasing, so you made a payment 2 weeks ago and it has not reflected on your statement. It is important to paraphrase when you want the speaker to know what you have understood from him or her. So paraphrasing is when a person reads or actively listens to a message and is able to clearly express it back in their own words, whether written or spoken. In a paraphrase, the original ideas or meaning are maintained, but the wording has to be your own. Like active listening, paraphrasing is a skill that needs to be taught explicitly, practiced, and developed. Tool or another factor as far as active listening is concerned, clarifying. So clarifying is used to gain a clearer understanding of the speaker's situation and to move the conversation from broad generalization to specific facts. So clarifying is reflecting on the broader context of what you understand the speaker to be saying, and often comes in the form of a question. You can request the other to clarify by asking, what do you mean by ? This gives the speaker an opportunity to fill in any missing pieces to the interaction. The desired outcome is a clear understanding of the issue or issues chosen for attention. So clarifying is checking understanding of a message by asking to hear it again or asking for more information and details. In clarifying, you help to spell the communication of the speaker. This encourages both of you to consider the meaning and impact of words or actions. You are reflecting back the intent of the verbal and or non-verbal cues. Use clarify to understand what is being communicated in context. So next in active listening is summarizing. Last but not the least, it assures both the listener and speaker that a complex message was received and understood. To summarize, restate the key components of the conversation. Example, okay, let's put all this together. Your check was sent on the 25th of the month and you just received a statement that does not reflect your payment. So, repeating a summary of what has been said back to the speaker is a technique used by the listener to repeat what has been said in their own words. And summarizing involves taking the main points of the received message and reiterating them in a logical and clear way, giving the speaker chance to correct if any correction is required or it's needed. So active listening is hearing what people are really saying and learn how to listen actively. Listening is one of the most important skills that one can have, and how well you listen has a major impact on your job effectiveness and on the quality of relationship with others. And why to listen actively? We need to listen to obtain information, we need to listen to understand, we need to listen for enjoyment, and we need to listen to learn. And given all this listening we do, you would think we would be good at it. In fact, most of us are not. Research suggests that we remember between 25% and 50% of what we hear. And that means that when you talk to your boss, colleagues, customers, or spouse for 10 minutes, they pay attention to less than half of the conversation. So this is abysmally dismal. Turn it around and it reveals that when you are receiving directions or being presented with information, you are not hearing the whole message either. You hope the important parts are captured in your 25 to 50%, but what if they are not? Clearly, listening is a skill that we can all benefit from improving. By becoming a better listener, you will improve your productivity as well as your ability to influence, persuade, and negotiate. What is more, you will avoid conflict and misunderstandings. All of these are necessary for workplace success. And good communication skills requires a high level of self-awareness. By understanding your personal style of communicating, you will go a long way towards creating good and lasting impressions with others. And as far as active listening is concerned, the way to become a better listener is to practice active listening. This is where you make a conscious effort to hear not only the words that another person is saying, but more importantly, try to understand the complete message being sent. In order to do this, you pay attention to the other person very carefully, and you cannot allow yourself to become distracted by whatever else may be going on around you, or by forming counter arguments that you will make when the other person stops speaking. Nor can you allow yourself to get bored and lose focus on what the other person is saying. All of these contribute to a lack of listening and understanding. If you are finding it particularly difficult to concentrate on what someone is saying, try repeating their words mentally as they themselves, and this will reinforce their message and help you to stay focused. To enhance your listening skills, you need to let the other person know that you are listening to what he or she is saying. To understand the importance of this, ask yourself if you have never been engaged in a conversation when you wondered if the other person was listening to what you were saying. You wonder if your message is getting across or if it is even worthwhile continuing to speak. It feels like talking to a brick wall, and it is something you want to avoid. Acknowledgement can be something as simple as a nod of the head or a simple ooh ooh. You are not necessarily agreeing with the person, you are simply indicating that you are listening. Using body language and other signs acknowledge you are listening also reminds you to pay attention and not let your mind wander. You should also try to respond to the speaker in a way that you will both encourage him or her to continue speaking so that you can get the information if you need. While nodding and oohing says you are interested, an occasional question or comment or recap what has been said communicates that you understand the message as well. So, to become an active listener, 5 key elements are there. So, they all help you to ensure that you hear the other person and that the other person knows you are hearing what they say. One is pay attention. Give the speaker your undivided attention and acknowledge the message. Recognize that non-verbal communication also speaks loudly. And what you should do, look at the speaker directly. Put aside distracting thoughts. Don't mentally prepare a rebuttal. Avoid being distracted by environmental factors, for example, side conversations or parallel conversations. Listen to the speaker's body language, that's more important, and show that you are listening. Use your own body language and gestures to convey your attention. And what you should do further, nod occasionally, smile and use other facial expressions. Note your posture and make sure it is open and inviting. Encourage the speaker to continue with small verbal comments like yes and ooh, and provide feedback. Our personal filters, assumptions, judgments, and beliefs can distort what we hear. As a listener, your role is to understand what is being said, and this may require you to reflect what is being said and ask questions. And reflect what has been said by